So in today's episode, I'm going to be showing you all why the pre-tribulation rapture is false and why the Bible leads you to a post-tribulational view. Now, the exact timing of the rapture is important in one way only, and that is a pre-tribulation rapture dictates that 7 years before the end, the church gets raptured prior to the Great Tribulation. So a lot of people have said to me, well, what difference does it matter, Jerry? As long as you believe in Jesus, what difference does it make? Well, the timing matters because the Bible talks about the great falling away. And the falling away is falling away from the faith. And I believe that one of the catalysts to the great falling away is the belief that Christians will be raptured prior to the Great Tribulation, when in fact the Bible states otherwise. And if you believe and hold to the pre-tribulation rapture nonsense, and you believe it wholeheartedly, and when that day comes and you don't get raptured, because you won't, because it's not scriptural, and you won't get raptured, when that day comes, you're liable to fall away. And why? You say, well, why, Jerry? I believe in Jesus. I trust Jesus. Aha, but will that trust get broken if your pastor keeps beating it into your head that Jesus won't beat up his bride, right? Because I've heard that from some pastors say that. Jesus ain't a wife beater, and if he doesn't come, he's a wife beater, right? See, this is the dangerous doctrine that's being taught, where people wholeheartedly believe within their soul that they're going to be rescued prior to the Great Tribulation. And the Bible does not state this. So when that time comes and they're not raptured, they might think that they've been lied to, that they believed in this religious thing, right? And they might turn to another religion, or worse yet, they might turn to the Antichrist and accept his mark because they were promised by Jesus that they would be raptured, and he lied to them. But in fact, it was the pastor, those who taught this dangerous doctrine, that actually lied, and Jesus did no such thing. Because Jesus says, and he tells everybody what's exactly going to happen, and no one wants to listen. We want to believe in our own fleshly desires that we're going to be taken out of this before we encounter any bad stuff. But throughout history, we've had persecution, we've had tribulations. No one's been exempt from it. And just because this is going to be the greatest one ever doesn't mean that we're exempt from it. So I'm going to pull up Matthew, and I'm going to kind of actually go at the tail end of chapter 23. And I'm going to read here in Scripture what it says here, and we'll continue into chapter 24 and maybe a little bit into 25. But I want to kind of go over why it's so important not to believe in this nonsense, okay? So I'm going to start in chapter 23, verse 37, okay? And it says this: Jerusalem, Jerusalem, she who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings. Yet you were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate. For I tell you, you will never see me again until you say, He who comes in the name of the Lord is the blessed one. It continues, chapter 24. As Jesus left and was going out of the temple complex, his disciples came up and called his attention to the temple buildings. Then he replied to them, "Don't you see all these things? I assure you, not one stone will be left here on another that will not be thrown down." While he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples approached him privately and said, "Tell us, when will these things happen? And what is the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" Then Jesus replied to them, "Watch out that no one deceives you." There's a warning. Don't let anyone deceive you. "For many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Messiah,' and they will deceive many. You are going to hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, because these things must take place. But the end is not yet. For nation will rise up against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these events are the beginning of birth pains. Then they will hand you over for persecution, and they will kill you. You will be hated by all nations because of my name. Then many will take offense, betray one another, and hate one another. Many false prophets will rise up and deceive many, because lawlessness will multiply. The love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be delivered. This good news of the kingdom will be proclaimed in all the world as a testimony to all nations. And then the end will come. So, when you see the abomination that causes desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Now let's just pause there for a moment, okay? So I want to go over to Daniel. Let's see here. So you saw where it says, let the reader understand, right? And it was talking about Daniel. Here's what it's talking about. He will make a firm covenant with many for 1 week. Now listen here. When we talk about 1 week here, the 1 week is 7 years. So you say, Jerry, see, there's a 7 years. Yeah. He will make a firm covenant with many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week, he will put a stop to sacrifice and offering. And the abomination of desolation will be on a wing of the temple under the decree destruction is poured until the decree destruction is poured out on the desolator. So when it says the middle of the week is 7 years because there's 7 days in a week. So the 1 week is 7 years. In the middle of that is 3.5 days. So that's 3.5 years is when the abomination of desolation comes. So you're not raptured 7 years prior to the end before the Antichrist is revealed at the Great Tribulation, because the Antichrist doesn't get revealed till 3.5 years into the 7 year period that Daniel's talking about here, okay, or the revelation that Daniel had. So now let's go back to Matthew, okay? And where was I at? All right, down here. So when you see the abomination that causes desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel, which we just went over, standing in the holy place, then those in Judea must flee to the mountains. A man on the housetop must not come down to get his things out of his house, and a man in the field must not go back to get his clothes. Woe to pregnant women and nursing mothers in those days. Pray that your escape may not be in winter or on a Sabbath. For at that time there will be great tribulation, the kind that hasn't been taking place from the beginning of the world until now and never will again. Unless those days were limited, no one would survive. But those days will be limited because of the elect. And who are the elect? You and me. Those who believe in Christ are the elect. If anyone tells you then, look, here is the Messiah, or over here, do not believe it. False messiahs and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders to lead astray, if possible, even the elect. Take note, I have told you this in advance, so if they tell you, look, he's in the wilderness, don't go out. Look, he's in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For as the lightning comes from east and flashes as far as the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever the carcass is, there the vultures will gather. So let's stop right there. Wherever the carcass is, there the vultures will gather. So let's see if I can find that, where I'm going to show you here in Revelation. It says here in Revelation, then I saw the beast, the kings of the earth, and this is, by the way, Revelation chapter 19, verses 17 through 21. Then I saw the beast, the kings of the earth, and their armies gathered together to wage war against the rider on the horse and against his army. But the beast was taken prisoner, and along with him the false prophet who had performed the signs in the presence. He deceived those who accepted the mark of the beast and those who worshipped his image with these signs. Both of them were thrown alive in the lake of fire that burns with sulfur. The rest were killed with the sword that came from the mouth of the rider on the horse. And who's the rider on the horse? Jesus. And all the birds were filled with their flesh. When does this happen? Even those on the pre-trib camp will admit that this is when Jesus comes back at Armageddon and takes care of everybody, right? Wipes out everybody with the breath of his mouth. And all the birds were filled with their flesh. So, you see how all this ties in together? Wherever the carcass is, there the vultures will gather. And the vultures are the ones that would what? Eat the flesh. If we continue here in chapter 24, verse 29, it says, immediately after the tribulation of those days. Which days? The Great Tribulation that he just spoke about up here. The sun will be darkened, and the moon will not shed its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the celestial powers will be shaken. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky. And then all the peoples of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. He will send out his angels with a loud trumpet, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the sky to the other. Who are the elect? You and I. So when did this happen? After the tribulation of those days that is spoke about up here. But let's continue with some parables. Now learn this parable from the fig tree. See, he's continuing to speak. As soon as its branch becomes tender and sprouts leaves, you know that summer is near. In the same way, when you see all these things, recognize that he is near at the door. Now, let me just stop here for a second. Who is he telling this to? Us, the ones that are Christians, the ones that believe in him. Because a lot of people say, well, Matthew 24 is just, it's just written to the Jews. Well, yeah, literally the Bible was, but it's also written to the Gentiles, and we are grafted into the same tree. could go into that too, how, if he doesn't spare the natural princes, he won't spare you either. And that goes into the whole once saved, always saved thing, but I won't go there right now. But, there's plenty of warnings about this. So he says, in the same way, when you see all these things, recognize that he is near. So he's telling you that you need to, when you see all of these things that he just got done talking about, all these things with the Abomination of Desolation. Now, many pre-tribbers say, well, we'll be out of here before the Abomination of Desolation, or when that actually happens, poof, we're gone. But he says, when you see all these things, when you see the sun being darkened, well, how are you going to see it if you're raptured? How are you going to see it? So you calling him a liar? What are you doing? He says, recognize that he is near at the door. I assure you, this generation, and what he's talking about, the generation that sees all of these things happen, will certainly not pass away until all these things take place. Not just some of these things. Not just, hey, there's, the Antichrist on sitting on the temple where he shouldn't be, and now we're raptured. No. He says all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. So he's telling you plainly, this isn't hard. It's pretty simple. But let's continue. Now, concerning that day and hour, no one knows. And you're like, aha, Jerry, say you don't know, so therefore it could come any time. Let's continue reading. It's fun, ain't it? Reading scripture in its entirety. I know. Neither the angels in heaven nor the Son, except the Father only. As the days of Noah were, so the coming of the Son of Man will be. For in those days, before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day Noah boarded the ark. They didn't know until the flood came and swept them all away. Now, who is he talking about? He's talking about all the wicked people that Noah preached to, all those wicked people that laughed at him, thought he was crazy, a flood coming, just did not believe, wanted to live their own wicked lifestyle, how they, not us, how they were caught off guard, right? Says they didn't know until the flood came and swept them all away. So this is the way the coming of the Son of Man will be. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to be swept away. No, it's talking about those who were wicked, who did not believe, who did not board the ark. They were all swept away. Now, so this is the way the coming of the Son of Man will be. He's trying to give you a correlation. Okay? Then 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken. Okay? So Noah had preached and preached. So think about this like a parallel in a way, okay? So we have 7 years of Daniel's 1 week period, right? The 7 years, right? And so think about this of the 120 years that Noah preached and trying to get everybody on the ark and everything. And they just wouldn't listen. So correlate that. So 7 years, there's all of this stuff coming. Nobody's wanting to take God seriously. All this fiery stuff's coming, right? And, these insects that are going to sting us. But people will be begging for death and be jumping off buildings and everything like that, like it talks about in Revelation, right? 7 years, and everybody's shaking their fists at God, like it says in the Bible, right, in Revelation. Everybody's shaking their fists at God, and they never repent. They take the sign of the beast and everything. 7 years of this. It's like in Noah's days when he tried to get people to come on the ark, but they wouldn't listen. 7 years of this stuff during the Great Tribulation. See the correlation. Just like in the days of Noah, when the Son of Man comes It'll be the same way. And then sudden destruction happened. When did that happen? At the end. It happened at the end. The end, the end, the end. When Noah boarded the ark, they were swept away in that destruction. On that day. So just like that, the Son of Man will come back at the end on that day. Not 70 years prior, but on the end, because no one will take heed of his awesomeness when he's sending all these judgments on the earth. No one will take heed of that. So at the end, Jesus comes back and raptures us and destroys them. All the wicked people, just like in the days of Noah. That's why he says, then 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken, one left. That is the rapture at the end. He just got done telling you the chain of events. Then at the end, this is what's going to happen, just like in the days of Noah. 2 women will be grinding at the mill. One will be taken, one left. Therefore, be alert, since you don't know what day your Lord is coming. He's telling you, be alert. Because you don't know. He said all of this stuff. He's giving you a warning. Hey, listen. Take heed to all of this. I'm telling you all this stuff because you don't know when the Lord is coming. So he's wanting you to persevere through this because you're going to deal with this. This is the reason why he's telling you all of these things. Not for you to just ignore it and go along your own merry way thinking you're going to be raptured. Because if you don't know this stuff, how are you going to know how to endure it when it happens? What if you don't get raptured, which you're not? What are you going to do during this time? You don't know the word because you're just disregarding it. Which many people do. Many people are like, well, I don't know that much about Revelations, Jerry. I don't know that much about it because I never did study it because I'm not going to be here. This is a dangerous doctrine, guys. Therefore, be alert, since you don't know what day your Lord is coming. But know this, if the homeowner had known what time the thief was coming, he would have stayed alert and not let his house be broken into. This is why you must also be ready, because the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. So he's telling you all this stuff. Now, if he's saying, hey, you all are going to be raptured prior to the Great Tribulation, then there's literally no reason whatsoever for him to say any of this. Because all he has to say is, hey, be ready because you don't know when I'm coming. Don't know when the Son of Man is coming, so be ready. There's no reason to tell you all of this stuff. Give you all these warnings. Tell you what to do to endure. Give you all this warning to endure. There's no reason. But let's continue. Who then is a faithful and sensible slave? Are you faithful, sensible? Whom his master has put in charge of his household, to give them food at the proper time. That slave whose master finds him working when he comes will be rewarded. Will you be working during the Great Tribulation? Will you be working? Or will you still be waiting for that rapture to come prior to the Antichrist? Or are you going to believe that, hey, this can't be the Antichrist because I'm not supposed to be here? Are you going to be working? This also goes into the whole once saved, always saved stuff, where people think, well, I've accepted Christ. I don't really need to do anything. Pastor says I'm cool. I'm good. I can keep doing my own thing. But are you going to be working for the Lord? Are you going to be giving him glory? He's the one that deserves the glory, not you. That slave, so let's go back. Who then is a faithful and sensible slave, whom his master has put in charge of his household to give them food at the proper time? What proper time? Think about it. Whom his master has put in charge of his household to give them food at the proper time. So if you think about this in context of the Great Tribulation, and we have not been raptured, and we're going through the Great Tribulation, we are giving food to who? We're trying to save as many as we can before the end. That's the food at the proper time. That slave whose master finds him working when he comes will be rewarded. How will he be rewarded? With eternal life. I assure you, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. That's the inheritance. But if that wicked slave says in his heart, my master is delayed, and starts to beat his fellow slaves and eats and drinks with drunkards, that slave's master will come on a day he does not expect and an hour he does not know. That's you. If you don't believe it and you're just doing your own thing and you've fallen away, like the unbelievers, like the days of Noah, you're going to be swept away when that awful and glorious day of the Lord comes. And it's going to be an awful day for the wicked and a glorious day for us. He will cut him to pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites. In that place, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And it continues here in chapter 25. Then the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the groom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were sensible. When the foolish took their lamps, they didn't take olive oil with them, but the sensible ones took oil in their flasks with their lamps, since the groom was delayed. Many people say, well, where is Christ at? I've been hearing he's been coming back for many, many years, right? Where is he at? A lot of people say that, so they don't believe. Since the groom was delayed, they all became drowsy and fell asleep. In the middle of the night, there was a shout, "Here comes the groom. Come out to meet him." Then all those virgins got up and trimmed their lamps. But the foolish ones said to the sensible ones, "Give us some of your oil, because our lamps are going out." Because they're not doing any work, are they? Their lamp is growing dim. They're not doing the work that they should be doing. The sensible ones answered, "No, there won't be enough for us and for you. Go instead to those who sell and buy oil for yourself." Go and learn the word. When they had gone to buy some, the groom arrived. Then those who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the rest of the virgins also came and said, "Master, Master, open up for us." But he replied, "I assure you, I do not know you. Therefore, be alert, because you don't know either the day or the hour." So let's continue. For it is just like a man going on a journey. He called his own slaves and turned over his possessions to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his own ability. Then he went on a journey. Immediately the man who had received 5 talents went, put them to work, and earned 5 more. In the same way, the man with 2 earned 2 more, but the man who had received 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. The man who received 5 talents approached, presented 5 more talents, and said, "Master, you gave me 5 talents. Look, I've earned 5 more talents." His master said to him, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You are faithful over a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Share your master's joy." Then the man with 2 talents also approached. He said, "Master, you gave me 2 talents. Look, I've earned 2 more talents." His master said to him, "Well done, good and faithful slave. You are faithful over a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Share your master's joy." Then the man who had received 1 talent also approached and said, "Master, I know you. You're a difficult man, reaping where you haven't sown and gathering where you haven't scattered seed. So I was afraid and went off and hid your talent in the ground. Look, you have what is yours." But his master replied to him, "You evil and lazy slave. If you knew that I reap where I haven't sown and gathered where I haven't scattered, then you should have deposited my money with the bankers, and when I returned, I would have received my money back with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have more than enough. But from the one who does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. And throw this good-for-nothing slave into the outer darkness. In that place, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Got to do the will of your Father in heaven. You're not just meant to just sit around and do nothing. It's very important that we stay alert. And let's continue here with verse 31, where it says, "When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them from one another, just as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats." This is at the end. "He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me.' Then the righteous will answer him, 'Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or without clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?' And the king will answer them, 'I assure you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me.' Then he will also say to those on the left, 'Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you didn't take me in. I was naked, and you didn't clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you didn't take care of me.' Then they will answer, 'Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or without clothes or sick or in prison and not help you?' Then he will answer them, 'I assure you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me either.' And they will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life." So you might say, well, what does this all have to do with, the timing of the rapture? Well, it has everything to do with it. Because if you believe that you're going to be raptured prior to the Great Tribulation, which it clearly, I just read it, is not true. If you believe that, then you're believing in something that's not true, and you're believing in a false Christ. You're believing in a false gospel. And you won't be working at the end because you won't believe it. You'll be falling away or doing your own thing, living in sin. And Jesus just got done explaining to you in all these parables how dangerous that is and where you're going to wind up. So this is why it is important to know the timing of when the rapture is. Not that you will know the day or hour, because no one knows, but that you know it's not before the tribulation, the Great Tribulation. I don't know when it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen at the end. But is it, right at the end? Is it a day before he comes that we get raptured? I don't know. But I do know it doesn't come before the Great Tribulation. And there isn't enough information in the Bible because it does say that we're not going to know the hour or the day, but it doesn't mean that we can't know, by the way. Once the Abomination of Desolation occurs, we'll have a pretty good idea, based upon Daniel, of how many days is going to be till the end. But we're still not going to know the exact day, and we're still not going to know the exact hour. We'll pretty much have an idea of the season, because we are supposed to pay attention to that as the Lord commands. So we're not caught off guard. We're supposed to stay sober and not be like the rest of the world, drinking, carrying on. This is the time to be sober during the Great Tribulation. But I can tell you this, you just heard, it's not prior to the Great Tribulation. I can tell you that. And just because I don't know exactly when it is, doesn't mean that you're right and it's before the Great Tribulation. So I hope that in some small way this was helpful for you. I know many of y'all will still want to believe that you're right because pride has crept in and it's taken over. But all you have to do is read the Bible. Stop believing these pastors that are teaching you this nonsense. It's just nonsense. It ain't true. I'm sorry. I wish it was true. I mean, I don't want to go through it either. But I think it's gain to go through it. To die and be dishonored for his name. I really don't see nothing wrong with it. I know it's going to be painful. It's going to be, hard for us. We're going to be persecuted, be, running for our lives from the Antichrist when he goes to, kill us and martyr us and chop our heads off and everything and torture us and torture our children. And it's going to be brutal. I ain't looking forward to it. But in the same way, I am looking forward to it because I know that my redemption draws near. Stop living in the flesh and believing this nonsense of the pre-tribulation rapture. It's not biblical. For 1,800 years of church history, it was never taught. It was only taught in the last couple hundred years because the end is near. And Satan wants to deceive as many of you as possible. And that's the reason why I tie the once saved, always saved myth and the pre-tribulation rapture myth all together, because by him creating both of those false doctrines, it's going to lead many people to believe, well, I'm not going to fall away anyways because once I'm saved, I'm always saved. But the Bible teaches something completely different. That we can fall away, that we can walk away from the faith. And I'll go into that in a different episode. But if you all have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them right down below. And if you want to see more of these episodes in the near future, make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell. And with that being said, I want to wish you all a wonderful week, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Take care.